Hello, everyone, and welcome back to episode 4 of Think It, Become It, Find Your Inner Glow. And please welcome back my co host, Christino.
Hello.
And today we also have a very, very special guest joining us. Today, we have the pleasure of welcoming Codie Janaé Larson with us, who
Hi.
is an intuitive transformation coach. And Codie will be joining us for a very special conversation on holiday trigger management. So please welcome Codie. Hello,
Yay.
Codie.
Welcome,
Hi,
Cody.
everybody.
Hey,
I'm
our
so
first
grateful to be
guest.
here.
Yes, our first
Hey.
guest.
I love that.
Woo.
Big stuff.
First
So,
off,
hello, Codie. Would you like to tell us a bit about yourself and a bit what about what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am an intuitive transformation coach. I work with all people, so I like to help men and women. That's my niche, whoever God places in my life. And I mainly focus on inner child healing, getting down to the core, pulling those things up, and just integrating mind, emotion, and body. And I do this through techniques of breath work, visualization, um, just getting us back to that inner core where we can produce miracles.
oh, I love that. That's beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.
Amazing. Thank you, Codie. And yeah, we're going to talk about holiday trigger management today. Would you like to start off the conversation about
Yeah,
it?
so yeah, absolutely. So something I think that is really big is the word trigger can be looked at as a bad thing. So like avoid triggers at all costs. And I think it's
Mhm.
actually the opposite. So what I like to tell my clients is anybody who triggers you is on your soul team. They're here to trigger you because the whole point is to trigger you back into loving yourself.
Oh,
So
wow.
I find holidays are a perfect opportunity for us to take those mirrors, like the mirror effect that we can apply in our relationships, and um, we can use the triggers to transmute in real time. So time is an illusion. I say this all the time, and time is linear. So there's no amount of healing time that has to take place, right? Like you don't have to go years without talking to your mom for her to feel the effect, or years with sibling rivalry for you guys to learn lessons. That's an illusion. So really, it's just a matter of turning into the core. And what we can do is, maybe our family members who maybe are in different belief systems than we are, that's okay. We can still show up at holiday and use it as an opportunity to share what we know. As long as we're doing with love, we're not coming from a place of ego, you'll see, and I've seen that you can actually just transmute in real time. And your relationships can, because you're putting your relationships on the elevation and frequency of miracles, right? So I feel like the triggers are perfect for that at holiday time.
Oh my God, I love that. That is probably the most beautiful thing I've heard today. Especially the I'm serious. I'm all about the love
Yes,
tribe.
love our family members who piss
Yes,
us off.
trigger us.
I
Um,
agree with that mindset. I agree with that attitude. And I love to go with the mindset, like, especially if you're around family and friends and other people, especially during the holidays. I love to go with the mindset I love me, I love you, I love all.
But
Yes.
to be fair, I feel like maybe you, Cody, and you, Nicole, might be a level higher than perhaps most people when it comes to being in that space and being in that vibration and holding that vibration. Because I think it's not something that necessarily is natural to 99.9% of the population. I think, most people do get triggered, and we do, Nicole and I have talked a lot about how to manage the inner critic and the
Mhm.
voices and feeling and checking in and everything. So, and I love the fact that both you, Cody, and Nicole are able to go and just be, everything is just love. But for most people who are not on that vibration, can you give like some concrete tips on what to do when you feel yourself getting triggered?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're in a space where you're hearing comments around you, or people, maybe family members are making comments or even looks, energy in the room, you can take that time to do what I call walking meditation. So this would be walking outside to do some deep breaths in and out, closing your eyes and literally just thinking of nothing. Um, if it's cold out, obviously you're going to want to be speedy. If you can't go outside because it's cold where you are, go into the bathroom. And again, turn on the fan in the bathroom, let the water run, listen to that water run in the bathroom, and just take those deep breaths in and out and kind of just rebalance to center. And I force my mind to think of nothing in those moments so that I can really anchor to myself. So as I'm in the bathroom or outside getting that fresh air, thoughts will come up, right? It's just normal. We'll be thinking like of things we want to say back and reply with, or maybe we're thinking that we want to just dip and get out of the party. So just remembering to push those thoughts aside, set them aside. Don't even observe them. Like just set them aside, get rid of them, and continue to think of nothing. And then going back out. Now, somebody who is an empath that, as you said, is still not as familiar with a lot of these techniques, it's going to take them, maybe they're going to have to do it a couple times in an hour. Versus somebody like me or Nicole, we can probably meditate for a good 30 minutes before going to a holiday party, and we have a couple hours. Now, after a couple hours, you'll start to feel, right? We start to pick up the energy. So it's just a matter of taking that time to be mindful and conscious of, hey, I'm starting to get jittery. And instead of acting from programmed patterning of snapping at people like, oh my God, I'm so stressed, just don't talk to me right now, or leaving the party early and kind of being that sellout, it's doing new behaviors. So stepping outside, doing the breath, going in the bathroom, getting a drink of water, removing yourself, right? Um, that's where I would say to start.
So probably physically removing yourself or doing what Nicole and I have talked about as well, which is pattern interrupt. So trying to
Mhm.
stop
Yeah,
the mindful,
the
the
loop
hamster in the
that
wheel
you're
mind
in.
that, yeah, I
Yes,
love that.
absolutely. Yeah. So being mindful of what we're doing, right? So being conscious and everything.
Absolutely.
A lot of times you'll notice like we don't think before we do things. Like I know I'll be in the kitchen. Yesterday I was cooking Thanksgiving, and I'm like this robot in my head thinking about things instead of thinking about what I'm doing and cooking. And as I was catching myself, I started to put my thoughts and my mindfulness attention back on making the mashed potatoes with love, or, cutting the cranberry sauce with love, and like being there in the moment. And so practicing getting out of my head and being in the moment, because a lot of times too, and I'm guilty of this, we'll think that the energy could be off with family members, but a lot of times it is us.
Yeah.
A lot of times, because remember, we create a reality, right? So perception is reality. What you see in others is really in you, which is a whole nother episode probably. But yeah, so that's really just, we can control us. And I found that in controlling us, it actually does change everything around us.
Oh my God, I love that.
I absolutely agree with that, that like changing our energy changes our own external reality and how we react to things like around us.
Yeah.
And for holidays in particular, well, not just holidays in particular, but like maybe you're highly sensitive, and you pick up energy from other people. I would really recommend like cord cutting and protecting and shielding your energy. Like, for example, before I go around people, I like to protect my energy and shield my energy with the use of sacred geometry, intentions, and colors, which can be a great exercise to do.
Mhm.
Learning how to shield your energy. And then I also recommend, like, if someone is bothering you, for example, at the end of the day, you can just take a deep breath, set an intention, call in your higher self to help you release that energy, and then imagine that person in front of you, the person whose energy you're still attached to. Imagine that person in front of you
Mhm.
and wrap them in white light, and then wrap yourself in white light, and then layer it with loving purple light, and then just imagine it lovingly letting it go.
I love
Yeah.
that. But what I'm hearing from you both is a lot of, attacking it in a sense from this of love, with the intention of love and bringing love to the situation. And but for a lot of us, and we're adults, but for a lot of us, we still revert back to being childlike, and we sometimes revert back into the patterns that we
Mhm.
had when we were children, probably especially around our siblings or our parents. And it can sometimes be really hard because you sort of regress back.
Mhm.
And even though you've done so much work on yourself, and you've really, you're like you say, Nicole, you have an intention of coming at it from a higher vibration and love and everything. In the moment, sometimes we regress and we go back into those behavioral patterns from when we were kids. Do you
That's a
guys
great
have any
point.
tips for how to deal with that?
I do. So I like what you're saying. So what I would say is welcome it. Whatever it is, don't judge the feelings that come up. Welcome them, sit with them. So again, going outside, going in the bathroom. If you're feeling that little girl and you come out, or that little boy that is feeling some type of way, go in the bathroom and hug that little girl, right? And just envision that you're hugging her, let her feelings be there. I like to sit with you know, where am I feeling the feeling in my body? Am I feeling the anxiety in my stomach? Am I feeling it in my chest? Am I feeling it in my head? Maybe my heart is beating fast, and I'll just sit there and I will sit with that and I allow that to be there. So what we're doing is we're validating that child in us, because that's why we keep doing the flip flop, right? So that child is there like, why are you getting rid of me? I was never bad, right? And so it's to show them, no, you were never bad, but I'm here because I know a better way now. So just sitting with those feelings in the moment, letting them be valid. Um, and something else that came up for me when you were saying that is absolutely so, that letting not only it be valid, but knowing that we're not perfect, right? It's very important, I feel like, for us to remember that, like, we can't just say, oh, they're triggering me, so they're the problem. It's very important that we take accountability for our world and the fact that we are creating it. So really it's about practicing what you preach. So really, in those alone time where you're crying in the shower, crying in bed, and you're really facing that, instead of looking at it like, okay, well, I'm not going to talk to my dad anymore because he's not there for me, and that's okay though. I'm the better person for doing that. It goes a little deeper than that, right? Like really crying and being like, oh, I can understand why dad thinks this way because of how he was raised, and how, the maybe decisions I made from the time that I was a teenager, that put me in situations that weren't ideal, that he didn't know how to deal with. So again, it's really looking at things in a totality, I feel like, and really taking accountability. And again, doesn't have to be like some prison sentence, right? Nobody's saying sit there and punish yourself like you're a bad girl. It's looking that nothing is right or wrong. It just is. And then realizing that if you're allowing it to be there and you're not pushing it away, it's just like when you battle ego. When you comfort ego, ego has no reason to battle you anymore. So I would say something like that.
I love that.
I love that. Yeah. And you're very into shadow work too, right? So how
Yes.
can we use shadow work when we are faced with triggers during the holidays, for example?
So what I would say is to be, before if you know that you have Christmas Eve at grandpa's house, right? And that's every Christmas Eve, I would be now actively going in the shower to feel my feelings. So that's not using substance or medications to kind of push down those feelings, just let them come up. And it is going to be ugly and uncomfortable, right? It's crying in the shower, it's snot on your pillow, it's avoiding all the calls, it's, uh feeling like you just don't have energy to get up and just do anything, and just again sit with it, allow it to be there, and let the things that are coming up process. And um it is best to try to meet it with love, to try to train your mind to look for the love in it. So that is how you're going to reprogram your mind to another place, and do it long before you get to the event. You know what I'm saying? That way you're prepared. You have put and a lot of times too, what I like to tell people is, you'll notice when you go in prayer and meditation and you're doing what, like Nicole had mentioned, like the light, envisioning light around them and talking to them, envisioning them in front of you, they can, their highest self will feel that. So it may not happen instantaneously, but you are making a connection, right? And so their heart is going to feel a shift, and source is going to go ahead and give them an insight into something that they're now ready to see, right? But the work starts with us. When we heal ourselves, we heal everyone. um, and then I guess another point that I would put for shadow work If you're somebody who is like me and you're like laying there crying and you're like, oh, I can cry all day, but I want to do something about it. That's when I literally wipe my tears. I get up and I grab my journal and I literally put thought to paper. You don't have to be an avid writer or an avid journaler to do this. You can grab a dollar notebook from the dollar store and literally I'll list in bullet points whatever's on my heart, like the bills, the kids, XYZ. And then what I'll do after that is I'll draw a line and then I'll start elaborating bullet point by bullet point. So then bills, I'll literally write thought to paper, anything that's in my mind about bills. And as I'm writing, I'll notice that I'm transmuting because what will happen is I'll be like, I'm so stressed with bills and what am I going to do? Da, 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 da. And then slowly it will be like, but God is telling me this is for a reason because I'm not supposed to be spoiled and concerned with material things. And so I get my answer. And then I'll go to the next bulletin point. The kids are XYZ and I feel defeated and I have no help and this isn't fair. And then it will slowly transmute to, but wait a minute, that's okay because that's an illusion. I have friends that I've made. I've made friends with other moms who have no one and I'm here for a purpose. So it's really just a matter of breaking it down, not being afraid to face it. That's what shadow work is. Don't be afraid. Don't run from it. Don't push it down. Pull it all up. Say, I'm here to show all the skeletons. I want them to be seen. Love them. Don't judge them. And then that's when slowly but surely they dissipate on their own because you're showing them that there's nothing to fear, you know?
Oh my God, I'm sorry. I just got goosebumps. I feel like I picked up so much from that that I want to start practicing right away. That was amazing, Cody. That was really, really
Thank
good.
you. Yeah, it is. It helps.
I feel like what you said about also you touched upon something which was very interesting where you said, don't use substances or anything to push down the feelings. I feel like that's what happens around the holidays a lot when we're around family because we have unresolved issues and everything. And we're like, oh, let me just get through this evening and I'm just gonna have some more wine and more wine and more wine. And that also becomes like it heightens I think, a lot of people don't recognize how much alcohol or, whatever can really heighten your feelings towards the negative. And you wake up with
Yes.
not only a physical, but an emotional hangover as well. And it makes you so much more anxious and it makes you so much
Yes.
more on edge.
Yes, absolutely. And I think to that point is people really feeling that and experiencing that for themselves, right? I know when I was going through I was drinking very heavily to as an aid to um, numb some pain, and I would do it where I would be like, okay, well, I'm just gonna have a sip while I do work, right? Because my ideas flow better when I'm not stressed, or whatever the excuse that I would tell myself. And I got to a point where, yeah, that feeling of what you're speaking on has to be so uncomfortable for that person that they see it themselves and they understand and no longer turn to it because it is like you said that quick fix of let me just get through tonight. It is some easier to, but in those moments where we find ourselves thinking that way, I like to say be an alien, right? So especially when you're at these family functions, show up and be an alien and watch yourself in third person. So be a little psychologist. So like for instance, I'll be Codie Janaé's best friend. I'll be like, why is Codie Janaé doing that? So then if I'm thinking something, I'll notice my thought. I'll be like, wow, do you see what you're doing there? I'm telling myself, yeah, I need wine. It'll make it so much better. So then if I choose in that moment, I see that thought, I already know the truth, right? I already know in this sober state as I'm watching Codie Janaé that alcohol is not going to change anything about Codie Janaé's reality. So now I just have to watch Codie Janaé and let her be there. And now she's feeling me watch her. She's feeling her highest self watch her. Now she has a new level of accountability, right? So it's now like, okay, now I'm mindful. I see what I'm doing. What can I do? Maybe I can, what's making me want to drink first? Or what's making me want to go smoke pot? Well, it's uncomfortable being around dad, or it's uncomfortable being around grandpa, whatever the case may be, choosing of what you can do to fix it in the moment, going out there and maybe just giving your dad a hug. Dad, I really love you. Maybe there doesn't need to be a big drawn out uncomfortable fight. Walking outside saying, Mom, do you need any help in the kitchen? It could be something as simple as that. So when we say love, I'm not saying that you have to go and oh my gosh, cuddle with me in bed and let's watch a movie and let's reminisce on all of our childhood days. It can simply be love is anything that is an elevated gesture, right? Helping somebody in the kitchen, maybe taking your dad a beer on the porch, um, and then you'll see the difference reflect in the reflection, right? You're going to see that you're making the difference. So for instance, maybe if you showed up to Christmas Eve and drank this year like you always do, maybe you and dad would have fought the way you always do, or maybe you and mom would have fought the way you always do. However, when you notice to be an alien and make a different decision, right? Because doing the same thing expecting a different result is insanity. So what can you do different? Hey, you know what? I'm not going to drink this year. And then seeing the reflection when your family, because they're going to pick up on it, right? Maybe they won't say it immediately, but maybe at New Year's, your mom calls you and is like, you know, Jesse, I really just want to say, I think it's so great that I didn't see you drinking at all this New Year's or this holiday. You know, give them time. That's the other thing. You have to give them time to be able to feel and get their downloads and information from source. We have to have patience. So I think that's what I would say as far as the aids and kind of things like that.
I love that.
Amazing.
But
Thank you, Codie.
we've talked obviously about triggers when it comes to, around the holidays and around family members. But there's a large part of the population all over the world uh, who Christmas or the holidays are especially difficult for them because of loneliness, because they don't have anybody to celebrate with, and because they're afraid to reach out and say, listen, I don't have anybody to celebrate the holidays with. I'm lonely. There's a level of shame involved with the feeling of loneliness as well, and admitting that you don't have anybody to celebrate the holidays with. Do you guys have any tips on how to deal with that?
I do. I hate to be the one that's always answering. I hope I'm not
Oh, I
stepping
love
on you,
it.
Nicole. um, this is crazy. So Nicole and I have actually discussed this in some of our mentoring that we've shared with one another. So I myself was in this place where I was like, yeah, my mom is dead, my dad is dead, I don't have family, right? And this was something that I would continue to say. But I had to really be honest with myself that even when these people were alive, I have family, right? But what was it like? Was it this Hallmark movie that I'm envisioning it would be like if they're here? No. So I think being honest with ourselves first is that how to combat that. So being honest, like, okay, let's not feel sorry for ourselves because when they were here or when we did have them, what was it like? So getting out of that pity party, because a lot of times you'll see that, oh, I don't have anybody at Christmas, but during the rest of the year, you really don't want to be around those people regardless. So
Yeah.
this is a form of codependency, right? And then I would say that it's just about realizing that it's more than blood. And I feel like that's a lesson we're all here to learn is that, there's so much emphasis on family and blood lines, right? And that's beautiful. I'm not saying it's not. Like heritage is a beautiful thing. But it's a very earthly thing, right? So it's a very 3D thing. And so I think that when we realize, like, for instance, I've had conversations and been moved to tears on the phone with Nicole, who's not blood, more than I've had on the phone with, let's say, my own sister who is blood, right? So I think removing those labels, removing those, again, those mental tags that we've been programmed to make with people, and then realizing that we're not, alone. There's people. And then again, to the point of taking some accountability. So, I don't want to reach out to anyone, I'm afraid. So overcoming that, that's something I had to do recently too, is, I had to realize to reach out for help and not be afraid to ask for help. Um, and you'll notice that there's a lot of other people out there that don't have a lot of family too, or that they do have family and that they're choosing to break away from certain cycles. So they're having to distance themselves. And a lot of great people who are just aligning. New Earth is all about formulating family and cultivating friendships from heart. So a lot of old earth stuff is not going to matter, is already falling away. Blood doesn't matter. The love is what matters and the integrity is what matters and law of one is what matters. And so I think like really making sure that we remind those who are kind of in that illusion or in that in between of I have no one, but I'm not in my power yet, reminding them that that itself is an illusion and just being there for them and letting them sit with the loneliness so that they can see that it's an illusion. Sometimes I'll be crying now that it's gotten to a point where I do my shadow work. There'll be times I cry and the tears just stop because I get a download of an answer of like, why are you crying about this? This is happening for you, not to you. And I have actually found myself in those moments where I want to cry. I'm like, no, I want to be sad. I want to be melancholy. Like I've found myself where, I want a reason to listen to the sad love songs. And so even observing that as an alien was a big game changer for me. So I think let them sit with it. See, are you really lonely though? You know, because there's a difference between lonely and
Mm.
being alone, right? Alone, you can be alone and be very at peace. I love my alone time. So it goes back to perception and what we're telling our mind.
But I think in terms of that, what you just hit upon in terms of perception, I think there is 100%, there is this image that we all have around the holidays that we're supposed to be happy and cheerful and everything is supposed to be, jolly, and we're supposed to have big parties with all of our
Mm-hmm.
hundreds of friends and, get
Mm.
together with our family and sit in matching PJs and matching Christmas sweaters and watch Hallmark movies, like you said. But it is, again, it is a construct. This is not the reality
It's
for,
programmed.
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
what society expects, like it's the expectations. But I would like to add to what Cody said. Um, I can definitely understand that sometimes holidays can be really triggering and really lonely for some people. Um, I've certainly had that experience, when my family wasn't around as well, and I was by myself. Um, so I definitely felt that as well. But I would love to add like some tips, like self-care. Make a list of what you enjoy. I like to say, like, go on a date with yourself.
Fall in love with
Um,
yourself.
exactly, exactly. Make a list of self-care activities that make you feel better. Do things you enjoy, treat yourself to your favorite meal. Um, and yes, like Cody was saying, perception is a big thing as well. If we can also like sit with ourselves and with our perception, and I think I was talking about this in another episode as well, like choosing the thought, the next best thought that's available to you that feels
Absolutely.
better.
Yeah, even if it's just a 1% improvement on where you're currently at, like it doesn't, like you said, Nicole, it doesn't need, you don't need to go from here to there, but just the 1% higher and, yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Oh, and boundaries. I think boundaries are such a good one over the holidays, and setting those boundaries. Like if you're overwhelmed and inundated, like, oh, there's a party here, there's a party there. Um, but maybe I just want to spend 2 hours with my family, and then I need to go somewhere else. I have other plans. Like, just set those boundaries. Like, okay, I'm going to spend time with you, but I'm only going to stay a couple of hours and then I'm leaving, for
But
Yes,
that
example.
absolutely.
But that can be really hard for a lot of people, though, because again, we're coming back to the whole, regressing to when you were a child and being told what you were going to do, basically, and having no choice. So a lot of
Hmm.
people still feel a little bit trapped in those roles of, well, your parents tell you this is where you're expected to be, and we expect you to be there for the whole of Christmas
Mhm.
Eve, which will be for however many hours. A lot of people struggle still in adulthood with setting boundaries.
It's certainly not easy. It's not. What would you recommend?
Well, I'm a huge fan of what Cody was saying. So I spend an inordinate amount of time in the bathroom when I'm around family during Christmas. And I do a lot of, check-ins and just grounding. And I repeat a lot of mantras in my head, in which I nurture my inner child, in which I say, it's okay, you are loved, you are safe, everything's going to be okay. So I do a lot of breathing, checking in, grounding. So I do, which is for me at least, it's a little bit like we talked about in the last episode, Nicole. It's like a pattern interrupt because but then like Cody said as well, I remove myself from the situation, that is a physical removal. And then I go through all of these things, which we talked about in the last episode, Nicole, with, how to reprogram the inner critic. Because it is the inner critic that comes up when we're triggered in those situations. You're not good enough. Why aren't you married? Why don't you have kids? Blah, 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 blah. Why are you this? Why are you that? And then it's a little bit like we've talked about, but whose voice is it? And then is it really your voice? But then you're confronted with the people who possibly gave that voice to the inner critic. But then it's a little bit like you both are saying, we create our own realities. So what we're being confronted with and the inner critic are a mirror
The
of,
opportunity to transmute.
yeah,
So, like, for instance, to that point, welcome these opportunities. So, welcome the fact that you're uncomfortable with having to stand up to, grandma, grandpa, mom, or dad. And welcome the fact that you're clearing your throat chakra and all the years of blocks that you have. So, for instance, you know, dad says something about one of the kids' piercings, you know, dad, that's actually in style now. Like a lot of the kids are doing that, you know.
Mhm.
Not to, and you'll notice like your parents will just give more pushback, but they'll listen to you. Um, Something else maybe, you know, they don't like XYZ about XYZ. You know, I understand that we have different perceptions, but something I've always wanted to tell you is that it really hurts my feelings so much when you talk about my forehead. And I don't know if grandma did this to you. And if they interrupt, wait, mom, I want to get this out. Just let me talk. And if they're going up here, how dare you? You stay here. And that way you just stay silent and they can see that they're up here and you're still here, right? And then just you maintain your energy. Mom, I feel like you do this because grandma made you feel this way. And I am so grateful to be able to come back home this holiday and share with all of you what I go out in the world and learn and bring home. And I just want you to know there's a whole different way out in the world, Mom. And I would love for us to have coffee. Maybe after the holidays are over, I would love to have coffee, Mom, and show that it's not right what Grandma did to you. And I know you don't mean to do this to me. And I love you. And I don't want to heal and leave you. I want to heal and heal together so that we can be closer than ever before. And I hope this makes sense, right?
wow.
She's not really going to have much to say to that. You're just being authentic. You're speaking from your heart. But what that takes courage, right? That takes finding the words to be able to say. And you just have to be able to breathe and speak truth. And a lot of times, source will speak for you. The words will just come.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's some really, really, really powerful stuff. And I feel like we have so many more topics that we'd like to explore with you, Codie. We have to
Yes.
have you back on our podcast to discuss
Oh,
a
I
whole.
I'm
agree.
honored. Yes. When Nicole told me, I was so excited. When she told me you guys launched this, I was so ecstatic. And then she said I could be a guest. I was like, yay.
I mean, I'm already, I don't know about you, Nicole, but I'm already thinking shadow work, inner
Mhm.
child. Um,
Completely. Yeah, we should definitely discuss that. Yeah.
I love
Yeah,
it. I love it.
I
This
do
was
too.
amazing. Thank you
It
This
so.
was.
was indeed amazing.
I'm so
Yeah.
grateful for you guys to have me. Thank you so much. I'm very honored. It's been beautiful.
Thank
I
you,
love your
Codie,
guys'
for joining
backgrounds. You should tell
us.
everybody. I wish my background was as bushy as y'all's. We couldn't
We'll,
figure that
we'll
out
fix,
before, but
we'll fix it.
we'll fix it.
We'll
It
fix it for
looks fine.
we'll
No, you
fix it
guys
for
are on top of the world in the Northern Lights. I love it.
Well, we hope you enjoyed that episode with our special guest, Codie. I'm sure she'll make other guest appearances in our podcast. Please let us know what you thought about the episode, and how these tips and tricks have helped you manage the holiday season. Please let us know in the comments. Oh, and if you're new to watching, don't forget to subscribe as well.
All right.
Bye bye, everyone.
Bye. Say bye to Cody, everybody. Bye.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.